Yes, I'm Lizzie. Let's talk about avoiding freak accidents with your horse. I get a lot of comments saying you can't wear shoes around your horse, it's dangerous. Texas T knot on your saddle is dangerous. You can't walk behind your horse, it's dangerous. You can't goof off around your horse, like slide off their rump or dismount with your foot in the stirrup because it's dangerous. I get a lot of those kind of comments because people are looking out for my safety or something. But then I see these people getting on these horses that are not ready to be ridden, are on a brink of a breakdown and are about to explode, and you can see the signs written all over them, but for some reason that's safer than wearing shoes around your horse. Well, it's not. If you know how to see these signs and you know how to avoid these accidents, then wearing shoes around your horse, tying your cinch in a Texas T knot, it's not dangerous. Walking behind your horse, it's not dangerous. There's a lot of things that people think are dangerous because they are not taking the right precautions to training their horse to make these things not dangerous. I wouldn't go drive in a car with somebody who doesn't have their license and has never driven before, because that is dangerous. But you have to teach this person how to drive and give them the right education on how to drive before you get in the car with them, because that's a lot safer. And that's just like with training horses. I'm not going to go ride a horse that has not had the proper education and know-how and just assume that everything will be okay, and you know, it's dangerous to ride horses, so you have to accept that it's going to be dangerous. But it's not, and it doesn't have to be, and it's not. If we do all the proper steps, the proper groundwork, we make sure there's no holes in our training before we go to ride, there's going to be absolutely no issue when you go to ride your horse. 100% guarantee it. I've seen amazing horse trainers do this, and they never have any freak accidents under the saddle because they make sure that all the steps leading up to getting on are well complete. So there are 3 points I want to discuss today, and that is, don't push them past their breaking point, give them time to process, help them regulate their nervous system. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of videos where the rider wants to go over a creek, a tarp, a log, a jump, some poles, whatever, some scary object, and the horse does not want to go. And it looks a lot like kick, pull, whip, kick, pull, whip, whip, pull, kick, whatever. And it goes on like crazy, and then all of a sudden the horse just has a huge reaction, blowing up over the object. And the person's like, whoa, and they have a huge reaction, falls off, and lots of drama and all that kind of stuff. Happens a lot. I see it a ton. Everybody does it. It's a newbie thing, and it's also just, you know, a typical cowboy thing. And there's lots of problems going on there. When you introduce your horse to something scary and new, like water, tarp, log, or whatever, even if it's not scary to you, even if they've done it before, but they're still scared of it, you have to give them their head and let them check it out. A lot of times you see a horse like really trying and wanting to look at the water and wanting to paw at it, and the person's just yanking on their head and kicking them, not giving the time of day to think about it, but they just want them to go over at the person's rate and speed. And forcing your horse through something like that they are very scared of is going to make them lose a lot of respect for you, and they're not going to be able to trust you because they can't trust your judgment if you're going to force them through something that is very scary to them, and they aren't going to trust your judgment later on that you're not going to put them in another scary position. And forcing them through it does not make them not scared of it. It just builds a lot of drama and fear around that object, so that next time you come to that same spot, you're going to have another huge reaction. Or you're going to create some sort of shutdown type situation where the horse will go over it, but they're really tense and nervous. And if anything happens while they're crossing that object, they're going to have a massive blow up explosion reaction, and it's going to take you way by surprise, and you're going to have no idea where that came from. So avoiding freak accidents, don't push your horse past the breaking point, means allow them to inspect what you want them to pass. Let them think about it, let them take their time, and if they need some space between that object and them, you have to give it to them, and you can't force them through it. You have to go at their pace, at their level, because once they decide that it's not scary, then you don't have to go through that whole spiel again. So you have to let them go at their pace, let them figure it out at their timing, and then next time it'll be so much easier and so much quicker. If your horse is really struggling to cross something and really doesn't want to, and it is weaving back and forth, and you're just sitting there putting pressure on them, trying to get them into a trailer even, and the more pressure you put on them, the more they say no, and the more they freak out about that object, because there's just so much stimulation that they can't handle it. I have a 2-horse trailer, a straight load, and Stella really didn't like it for a long time, and I had a heck of a time getting her to load. Every single time I went to load her, I went to many shows with that trailer, and every single time going there, leaving there, I would have a heck of a time trying to get her in and out. And I was using the approach and retreat method, where you put pressure on them until they go forward, and then you let them relax, and you put pressure on them again. And that just was not working with Stella, because the more I put pressure on her to go forward, the more she had to freak out and say no. So what I started doing instead was putting very little to no pressure on her, just standing next to the trailer. And once she decided to go close to the trailer or even put a foot in, I would just praise her and give her scratches, and she loves scratches, so this really works on her. Or if your horse doesn't respond to scratching, then treats or whatever. But if she decided on her own to put a foot in or to step closer to the trailer in the right direction, then I would really praise her, and I would give her scratches and stuff, and then she would back off, and then she would try again without me even asking her, and again I would praise her and I'd scratch her and really love on her, and then eventually I could ask her to go a little bit more forward and then praise her again, and then that seemed to really work, and we had a lot more success with that method than the approach and retreat, where you put pressure on them and then they do it and then you take the pressure off as the reward. But instead you let them decide to do it and then you just give them a reward. So that is kind of like the let them process phase, where you have to let them figure it out and take it at their time. So you have to let them have rein, you have to let them have the ability to say no and to back off, and to just give them the opportunity to let them look at it, let them process, let them have the ability to say yes or no, and just let them feel like you understand that they are scared of it and you want them to figure it out on their own instead of you forcing them through it, because that's really going to be hard on your relationship and your horse's respect for you and all those kinds of things, like I said earlier. And to our last point with helping our horse regulate their nervous system, if you're on a ride or something and your horse starts seeing something in the distance or something in the woods that's scaring them, then you're probably going to feel them getting a little bit more uptight, their movements getting a little bit more jerky, their head getting up more high, their ears going straight. Like, there's going to be signs. Their nostrils are going to flare, they're going to start breathing heavier. And if we keep pushing our horse once they are getting up to that point, their tension level is just going to overflow and they're going to have a reaction. They're going to spook, bolt, jump, buck, whatever your horse's tendency is. So to avoid that kind of situation is to be very aware of your horse's stress levels and all of their signs that I just talked about. If you feel your horse start getting uppity and tense, tight, nervous, that's when we want to try helping regulate their nervous system. Obviously, it's best to practice these things before your horse gets high and nervous. So it's just another tool in our toolbox that we need to pull out sometimes when we're on a ride. So we want to practice these things in a place where they feel safe before we're in a situation where they feel anxious. So when your horse is nervous and looking off in the distance, staring at something that scares them, their mind is not where their feet are. They're very distracted and not present with you. So they're not paying attention to you or where their feet are. So that's another way that they spook really easily when they're in that state, because everything will take them by surprise because they're not aware of anything around them besides what they are staring at. So to help them regulate their nervous system, we can do a couple things. And one of those things is just to bring their attention back to you, not in a harsh, mean way where we're forcing them to pay attention to us. It's in a calm manner where we're just asking them to think about us. We're just getting an ear twitch towards us, because when their ear twitches back towards us, that means that they're thinking about us. So if you can get an ear twitch at you, that means that they're thinking about you. So if you pick up your rein and their ear twitches at you, that means that they're a little bit present. So that's what you start trying to work for, is that ear twitch. And then once you have that ear twitch, you can get them to start trying to bring their head to your knee. And once we get a head to the knee, with their eyes actually looking at us and not them being distracted and looking somewhere else with their head to our knee, we want them to willingly bring their head to our knee. So we're not forcing their head to our knee, because if we're forcing, their mind is still somewhere else. We need them to choose to come to our knee, because that is them being present and not us forcing their head to our knee, which would make them still scared of what they're looking at, but their head just to our knee. So playing little games like that, where you're just trying to get them to think about you, bring their mind back to their feet, and we want them to lick and chew and have that like sigh of relief where they're coming back to earth, to reality, to where they are standing and not staring at that object. So if you're having a hard time getting your horse to have an ear flick towards you, whatever, you can get off of the saddle, because not everything has to be done on the saddle. A lot of times, if your horse is in that state of mind, it's a lot safer to get off, because they're unpredictable when they are in that state of not being present and frozen in fear staring at something. So if you can get off and just play little mind games where you ask them to release their hindquarters, so you're moving their feet and getting them to come around and look at you. And like I said, all of this should be practiced in a place where they are comfortable, so we can practice picking up their head and getting an ear twitch towards us so they know what this pressure is. Hello. So that when they are nervous and uptight, we're not having to train them to that pressure, so they already know it. Because you can't train a horse that is uptight, nervous, in a frozen state, staring at something. It's not a good time to train a horse. So if you really want this to work, you need to have it figured out before you go on a trail ride and before you see something spooky. And if you haven't seen it already, I have a whole video from a couple of weeks ago where I go over subtle signs of tension in your horse. So noticing their ears are uptight and forward, and nostrils are flaring, their chin is tense and stuff. I go over all of that. And so if you want to know more about seeing tension in your horse, you can go watch that video. So it's always fun for equestrians to make fun of horses for spooking at random things in the bushes and stuff, but it's not what it is made out to be. It's not like it's fun for horses to spook at random things. Sometimes they're just overstimulated. If the weather is feeling brisky, if they're feeling fresh, then they're just going to be more overstimulated and uptight and kind of jumping at everything, and they need a lot more regulation and help with their nervous system then. Other times there are just horses that hold a lot more tension and nerves on a regular basis. It's usually because they've been forced through a lot of sketchy situations and they don't really trust the rider to put them in the best scenario, because they don't trust the kind of situation you're going to put them in. They don't trust that you're going to force them into something that they're scared of. So like we said in the beginning, we want to let them figure it out so we don't create a horse with a lot of tension, anxiety, nerves. We want them to be able to trust us and trust that we're going to put them in a situation where they can get out of if they need to. Horses aren't as dangerous and scary as a lot of people like to make them out to be. They don't intentionally go around and step on your feet and run you over and spook and buck you off and bolt whatever you're trying to get off of them and stuff. Like, those are freak accidents that aren't actually freak. They are very easy to see coming if you know how to read the signs. No horse will have a massive reaction without some sort of warning. So if you know how to read the signs and you're careful and you don't want to push your horse past that limit, then you won't be putting yourself in dangerous situations. And it doesn't matter if you're wearing shoes around your horses, and it doesn't matter how you tie your cinch or how you dismount your horse. Like, I wouldn't just go around wearing shoes around any random horse that I don't know. And I wouldn't go walk behind the butt of any horse I don't know. And I wouldn't be as careless as I am around Stella with any horse, because I know her. I know her signs. I know her stress levels. I know that her grazing grass right now she's completely chill. I mean, it's a bit windy, so I would be a little bit more cautious, even though she seems perfectly fine, because sudden things can happen with wind, and horses tend to have some more stress when there is wind. But she's perfectly chill right now, so I would be perfectly fine being careless around her right now. But I wouldn't do that around just any horse. Because like I said, every horse needs to be trained. You can't just throw them in as a pilot and expect them to know how to fly. You have to train them how to do those things and to learn their mannerisms and get accustomed to their signs and stress levels and all those things. So with all that being said, you can have less freak accidents around your horse and know more about what's going on behind their ears, and understand that freak accidents aren't actually freak accidents, and you can actually see them coming from miles away if you know how to read the language. I hope that helped. That's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big like and subscribe. I post new videos every single Sunday, so go ahead and subscribe. And you go follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and I'll see you guys next week, Sunday. Bye!